Professor,
Senator Graham.
Thank you. Would it be torture to put a spider in a jail cell of a person who was afraid of spiders?
Conceivably. If that person was
I need
afraid
a black and white yes or no answer.
It depends on whether
We believe the person in the jail cell was part of a terrorist organization who had information about an impending attack, and we know he's afraid of spiders. Would you say that if we put a spider in the jail cell that we would torture that person?
I would not. There is one circumstance in which the answer would be yes. That is if he knew or believed, if it was known that he believed that spiders are deadly, because part of the torture statute says that you can inflict mental pain and suffering, that's torture, by threatening death to someone if it causes mental injury afterwards. For an ordinary person, no.
Okay. Well, we're trying to exploit phobias here without... Mr. Adcock has a different view of what happened here in terms of torture. Do you think he's unethical if he arrives at a different view of what happened here?
I don't think that he is unethical for arriving at a different view. I think he would be unethical if he ignored the relevant law and told you that his official legal opinion was that it wasn't torture.
Have you ever met Mr. Bobby?
I've never met him.
Have you met any of these people?
I met John Yoo once.
You're basing your opinion because they didn't cite a case that you think is dispositive. They're a bunch of crooks. I mean, is that what this comes down to? Your opinion that no reasonable lawyer could write a memo and exclude this case without being unethical? Is that what you're telling this committee?
This case is just one example out of many. I think that no reasonable lawyer could discuss the commander-in-chief power and not cite Youngstown.
How could Mr. Adcock come to a completely different conclusion about the common definition of torture and not be unethical?
Well, Senator, I can't speak for Mr. Adcock.
Well, let him speak for himself.
I will. I'd be happy to mention that the Ireland case that he leaned his opinion on is not the only European court case on the meaning of torture.
Well, the fact that you didn't tell me about the Ireland case.
There have been subsequent cases that have called, for example, hosing somebody down with water while spinning the tire torture.
Please, the fact that you didn't tell me about the Ireland case, can I assume that you were trying to hide something from me?
Sir, I am not writing an opinion that's binding on the entire executive branch of government.
Well, you're telling the nation what's wrong and what's right, and he's told me about a case that I didn't even know about that suggests that the techniques in question have been looked at by an international body, and the ones that we used are less severe than the ones that were found not to be torture, and you didn't tell me about it. Did you know about it?
Sir, I'm not telling you what's right and wrong. I'm telling you what is ethical and unethical conduct by a lawyer.
Did you know about the case, the Ireland case?
Of course I did.
Well, you know what? I don't think you're unethical.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. My family appreciates it as well.
I've also got some further bad news for Mr. Safan, who I respect very greatly in his interrogation. If you look at the 2003 Supreme Court case of Chavez versus Martinez, you have an identical set of facts here. You had an individual that was interrogated while in an emergency room. He had been shot 5 times in the face by a police official. And Justice Stevens said that that practice was torture. Now, thank goodness he was in the minority.
Can I respond to some?
Thank goodness he was in the minority in that case because Justice Clarence Thomas, of course,
Professor Adcock, wouldn't it depend on? You're not suggesting that it's torture to interview somebody in a hospital.
That's what Justice Stevens suggested in Chavez versus Martinez.
So it's your opinion as a law professor that Chavez-Martinez stands for the proposition that it's torture for law enforcement to ever question a suspect in a hospital.
My opinion is that Stevens was wrong, but I'm just saying that's what Stevens' opinion was on page 10
You think it stands for the proposition that Stevens would oppose any interrogation of any criminal defendant in a hospital?
That's what he said in his opinion, page 10 of my text.
Can I respond, please, to some of those assertions? First, the timeline that was criticized before. The memo that...
excuse me, we'll let you explain, but I got a few questions, and you can say anything you want, because you're a great American. Now, about the CIA, about the interrogation of this suspect, do you know a gentleman named John Kiriakou?
Me? Yeah. Myself? The question? No, I don't know him.
Okay, he gave an interview. He's a retired CIA officer, and he said, Abu Zubaydah, is that the guy's name?
Yes.
That's it, right? He said that they waterboarded the guy and he broke within 35 seconds.
Is this question for me, sir?
Yes.
Well, last week he retracted that and he said he was misinformed and actually
Okay.
he was not at the Abu Zubaydah location.
Okay, so he just
He
got mixed up.
retracted that, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's one of the things that was mentioned before.
Right, right.
And now we know it's 83 times, not
Okay.
35 seconds.
Now, do you believe that any good information was obtained through harsh interrogation techniques? Can you say that there was no good information?
Well, from what I know on the Abu Zubaydah, I would like you to evaluate the information that we got before.
Well, the vice president suggesting that there was good information obtained, and I'd like the committee to get that information. Let's have both sides of the story here. I mean, one of the reasons these techniques have survived for about 500 years is apparently they work.
Because, sir, there's a lot of people who don't know how to interrogate, and it's
Right.
easy to hit somebody than outsmart them.
I understand that you believe you got it right, and you know how to do it, and these other people don't. I understand. I understand that. In many ways, I agree with you, but this idea that you're the complete knowledge of what happened in terms of interrogation techniques and what was gained is not accurate. Your testimony is not a complete repository of what happened during these interrogation techniques of high-value targets. There are other interrogations going on, and there's an allegation made that these interrogations yielded information that protect Americans. If we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it in complete terms.
And to be
Now-
fair to the witness, Senator, I think
Yeah.
he,
No, and
he
I'm-
hasn't represented himself to
No,
be anything
no.
more than somebody who can correct
I mentioned my own
misimpression
personal experience.
that arose
Right,
from
and,
the
and I have nothing but the
interrogation of Abu
highest
Zubaydah.
regard for this gentleman. I just know this is not it. This is not the whole story. And the point is, do we need to keep doing this? I think we've cleaned up this mess. We've got it right, generally speaking, and the more we get into this, the more we're going to make it chilling for the next group of people who are asked to defend this nation. And that leads to me in my last question. Do you believe it would be wrong for President Obama to authorize a technique outside the Army field manual if the CIA told him they had a high-value target that they believe possesses information about an imminent attack?
I believe that they should ask other professional interrogators to evaluate
I'm
that,
telling you,
that
with
detainee.
do you believe that the CIA, do you think Leon Panetta is qualified for his job?
Well, I believe he's extremely qualified to his job. I
Let
agree
me
with
tell
a
you
lot
what
of.
he's. I'm going to read something to you.
If we're going to get into
This is-
qualifications of Panetta.
Yeah, this is important now.
Right.
Ron Wyden asked him, if person has critical threat information, urgent information, and you need to be able to secure that information, he asked Panetta, what would you do? In that particular situation that you mentioned, where you have someone who could be a ticking time bomb, and it's absolutely necessary to find out what information that individual has, I think we would have to do everything possible within the law to get that information. If we had a ticking time bomb situation, obviously whatever was being used I felt was not sufficient, I would not hesitate to go to the President of the United States and request whatever additional authority I would need, but obviously I would again state that I think this President would do nothing that would violate the laws that were in place. Having said that,
Wrap it up. I'm sorry.
huh? Okay, I'll wrap it up. Would the President of the United States, President Obama, be wrong in considering a request from the CIA to engage in interrogation techniques beyond the field manual but that yet were lawful?
Sir, from the quote that you read, the key word in it from Director Panetta, within the law. Within the law,
Right.
yes, the President
Is
can
the
authorize
Army
whatever.
field manual the complete law on what is lawful?
No, it's
in
an
terms of
outline for interrogations.
Thank you.